My biggest fear and the biggest problem I think we have in this country today is that people do not remember how bad things were. The panic, the anxiety.
It was the biggest thing since the Depression in the 1930s.
The number of homes facing foreclosure has jumped 57%.
This will be a time of anxiety for Americans worried about their mortgages and their homes.
Economists worry the housing slump will plunge the broader economy into a recession.
And let's do whatever it takes to keep the promise of America alive in our time.
I was always looking for that American dream. That's becoming an American nightmare.
So Rick's business was gangbusters. We were in concrete. We were the ground breakers. You know, we got in there, we did the slab in the beams, so we felt all the new building coming in. When somebody new was wanting to build a house, we were there ready to go. And, you know, business was just growing and growing. We had people just knocking every day, and he was having to turn business away, and I was like, oh. There was a builder that we dealt primarily with, and, you know, he said, this market can't sustain forever. And then I said, well, even if, you know, something was to happen, we're good. We have an outstanding reputation. People are going to stop building homes. Yeah, it didn't work that way. And I found out I was pregnant, and then the market died. Everything fell apart.
I was working at Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So to apply for the mortgage with DHI Mortgage, I had to provide all of my income. Back then, I probably was close to $36,000 gross. Upon their review, they noticed that I really did not make enough money to qualify for a mortgage loan through DHI or any other mortgager. And they was like, well, we can state your income. And I was like, okay. All I saw was keys, new house. My kids had their own bedroom. Done.
I am the president and CEO of HOPE. We are a 30-year-old not-for-profit organization that fights housing discrimination. You know, I don't know if they would know that they were targeted because of their race. I think the first piece is being an educated consumer and knowing that you're being offered a predatory loan.
Foreclosure lawsuit in the box office, which is good.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Well, if you were black in this area, you were 3 times more likely to get a predatory/discriminatory loan. If you were Hispanic, 4 times. The city is suing Wells Fargo because they issued discriminatory loans, and those discriminatory loans hurt the city. I think we have to pursue it. I think we have to continue to fight, because otherwise the banks just realize they can do whatever they want to, and then they can drag it out and it'll go away.
How they were approaching it to many of us, that, you know, you get into this mortgage, which will be 2 years fixed. And what they will tell you is before the 2 years are over, try to re-qualify for a new loan.
I think there were some people that got caught up that didn't understand the adjustable mortgages. And in an adjustable mortgage, a family, say, bought a property for $1,500 for the first year, or the first 2 years or 3 years, and then in the third year, whatever, The adjustment came and they now owe $3,500. I don't think lenders at that time, some of the mortgage brokers may not have been explaining it to them properly, and I felt sorry for those people.
So being in HR, we had to look at duplicated positions, duplicated roles, then we had to look by seniority. After we already identified positions that we had to let go due to the budget, then I got a call. And I was like, okay, they calling me. Maybe they want to check my report. But no, that was the call for me. And I was eventually let go. So I started using my savings to pay the mortgage and to pay my association fees monthly. And as my savings kept depleting, the stress came on, like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna make the next month? Okay, the next month, okay. It was real. I mean, I didn't have any help, no one to talk to, and thinking about it like this. My mom never owned a home, so she didn't understand. My grandmother did own a home, but it was no mortgage, so she didn't understand either. So who am I talking to? My kids, they didn't understand that. When they knew is when they came and repossessed my car. I was getting ready to take my kids to school, we walked out the house, and my car was gone. That's when they know, Mommy, something's not right.
I think one thing that I came away with very quickly was there's not a whole lot of difference between somebody making six figures and somebody down at the bottom end of the pay scale when both of them lose their money and they don't have any savings.
Until astronomers found even more moons orbiting Saturn and Jupiter.
I was a real estate appraiser. I was self-employed, and I did that for 13 years. We had a very nice lifestyle. We were doing very well. I mean, I was making in the mid six figures, 100,000 range.
I mean, our house was nice and we were doing well, but we were not extravagant, and we had our savings and our emergency fund and stuff, and we're not big spenders, and so we could easily ride out all the other downturns, but this one.
I knew that there was going to be some kind of correction in the market. I didn't realize it was going to be as big and as devastating as it was. I noticed that the orders for appraisal requests were coming in slower and slower, and then when the crash hit, it's like things dried up overnight.
The increase in the mortgage payments combined with no way out and losing their jobs, all those things would contribute to the inability to make the mortgage payment. And if you stop making your mortgage payments, sooner or later the bank's going to want the house back.
It's Mitch's land, and he had an old single-wide trailer there, and he had his two kids and I had mine, and we were talking about it. We moved all together, and one day he and I went out and came back with a new car and a new manufactured home to be put on the lot, and told the kids we were going to be moving into this house, and measured it out and got everything all set up for this new gorgeous house that we had just purchased. It was so exciting, and we were building our decks and planning, and Christmases were big with big trees, and it was just great. Everything was going so well. And then I went to Reno, Nevada to help my mother, who was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. I'm an only child, so I'm the only one that could go and take care of her. She was going through chemotherapy and radiation and not doing well with either one. She finally went into a coma, and my mom was gone within 3 hours. And then I had to plan her funeral and bury my mother. And I came back to Georgia And I looked for job after job after job after job. And so we were living on one income with 2 boys. It got hard. It got really hard. We got behind on our mortgage payments. And I was in a very bad state of depression and looked as much as my mind would let me. And then I would crawl into bed and hide under the covers until I got a job finally. And I used to do the rob Peter to pay Paul thing, pay the electricity this month and pay the mortgage next month. I didn't know at that time that if you send a partial payment, they don't have to accept it. They can send it back to you. And I just juggled bills for as long as I could, and then I missed 3 mortgage payments.
I called the bank and I said, okay, we're not going to be able to make our mortgage payments. What can we do? And that's when they replied and said, in order for us to help you, you need to stop making your mortgage payments and you need to be behind by 3 months. So we followed their advice.
And this was totally against our philosophy and our personalities to just basically, well, just
To
not
stop
pay
making our mortgage,
to
yeah.
not be responsible, hold ourselves accountable for what we owed.
Once the 3 months came, we applied for the financial aid programs. Took them over 10 months to come back with an answer, and the answer was no. So by that time, we were a year behind in our payments, and there was no recovery.
We were sunk.
Yeah. When I finished the house, I appraised it for $450,000. It was worth about $170,000 when we finally got foreclosed on.
Our mortgage was, from refinancing, $4,300 a month. And it was way, way, way beyond. I mean, it was crazy. We got almost a year from non-payment. But, I had friends that were able to stay in their house for 2.5 years without paying mortgage before the bank actually moved forward because there was such an onslaught. The things roll in and you say, can you give us another month? What can you do for us? Can help us out? We're not gonna be able to make it this month, but I can give you a little. We'll catch up, Here you are, you're paying all this time. And, you miss 1 month and they're like, yeah, we're shutting you down. I get it, but in the same breath, it's horrible to have to hear.
We jumped through every single hoop that Wells Fargo threw at us, every time. Wells Fargo was saying they'd help. They were advertising you could get your mortgage amounts reduced if you refinanced. They said, send us this money and we'll rewrite your loan and make you a lower payment. And so Mitch borrowed the money and they cashed the check and they had our money. And I had 2 more weeks to get the rest of the monthly payment together. And I was ready to pay it when the deputy showed up on our door and told us they sold the house on the courtroom steps. And our next door neighbor had purchased our house. And the first thing I did was call the law office that was supposed to be helping us. And she said, don't answer the door. And I said, too late. Mitch has already gone out to meet him because he was someone Mitch grew up with. And he handed Mitch the notice. We were told we had 48 hours to get out of the house. And it was like cutting a piece of my heart out.
I think this whole ordeal has, strengthened me to put on a good facade to let people know that I got this and it's okay. And it's really not. We've actually lost our home. We actually had to classify as homeless. We actually had to. I had to go to Dade County Public Schools and list my kids as homeless. By doing that, they were able to stay in their school.
We were into the house for just shy of $500,000. You know, after non-payment for so long, you know, they send the notices. If you don't pay, the threatens, you know, if you don't pay, we're gonna foreclose. If you don't pay, we're gonna foreclose. We've started foreclosures. And then when you get served, the paper from whatever sheriff or whoever that comes and brings you the paper that says you have to go to court. And then you go to court. And you have to bring your family and your kids in strollers.
Well, I think in the office, we all thought it was horrible. I mean, you know, nobody wants to take anything from anybody. If you're a decent person, you want that person to be whole. But if you're given a responsibility, your responsibility is to execute what the law says. And that's what being an administrative office. So here we are foreclosing. Here we have judges that feel the same way we do, and we're processing these loans. Now, some of the people, I was happy to see them, you know. But 90% of it, you know, is you just have to do it. That's, you know, and the people that got caught in the net that maybe shouldn't have, they had ample time, some of them, to get out if they could. But it's just a nasty business, and nobody feels good about that.
And the judge was so understanding. I think we were in and out probably in 15 minutes. I think he gave us 2 months to be out. You know, you could tell this was not his favorite day either. We had to walk away from everything. We couldn't pay the mortgage. We certainly couldn't pay credit cards. You know, we couldn't pay electricity. We couldn't pay water. You know, prior to the date of having to leave, you know, we spent a month in the house almost without electricity. Those were the worst days.
So I want people to think about what the economy looks like today compared to just a few years ago, 10 years ago. You know, as you do your daily drive, there's breweries, there's restaurants on every single corner. But if it's a recession or if it's just a little bit of a downturn, how quickly things will turn badly because a consumer will start to pull back a little bit. And when the financial crisis comes, and believe me, it's coming again, we're going to be in a much worse state than we were in 2008. And that's something that I really urge us all to consider very carefully.
It seems like everything just, you know, we never learn from our mistakes. We just kind of keep, as a society, we just kind of keep repeating them over and over again. And they happen differently, but, you know, it just seems like it's the same cycles keep coming and going.
Oh, I see it happening again. Especially around here. Building is crazy right now. Developments popping up everywhere. They're just building. And I worry that, you know, it's the same scenario just happening again 10 years later. You know, like everybody suddenly forgot that all this happened.
We have a crazy stock market that's out of control in ways that are dwarfed by what happened just a few years ago in the crash. And there's no good explanation for that.
Although we haven't got a bubble in the overall economy, we've got some sort of frothy or bubbly sort of housing markets. I worry about when I hear people say that they think that the financial system can never have another major crisis, because I suspect we'll have another one, it just won't be housing.
It took meeting other people across the country that went through the same thing for me to finally realize that it wasn't just me.
The numbers on income disparity are strikingly large, and they seem to be getting worse.
I feel like the American dream was taken from me. And if I had an opportunity to achieve that dream, it wouldn't be the American dream, it would be my dream.
The bank's new reality needs to be that when they act bad, there are people who are big enough to stand up to them. That's going to be us.